This is part one of two tutorials on form. As you recall, elements of design, we've gone over shape, which are 2D, and now we're going to number 4, form, which is going to be three-dimensional objects. So we're going to explore this much further, and these are new building blocks for our next illustration. Okay, so you're going to need a 2 letterhead A4 size pages, 8.5 by 11, and I'm going to zoom in so we can start at the top and work our way down. I'm going to do 2 columns. I'm going to do one shape. I'm going to start with 2D shapes, then go into 3D and variations, and have 2 columns here. So I'll do 1 column first and then over to the right side. So I'm going to zoom in. There we go. To fill our screen, let me let me put a pencil here for focus. Make sure we're all in focus. Perfect. So, as mentioned before, we'll label our page so that we are, and I'm going to put 3D forms. And we're going to be starting with 2D shapes. And our first one, we're going to do that 4 equal-sided as best we can. And again, it's not necessary to have a ruler for this, but it's totally up to you. These are your notes after all. So we're going to be doing a square. And I'm going to be going over the blue. And again, when you submit your notes, I'd like to see them submitted with lead pencil over top. So it's just practicing our process of doing blue and then going over in lead pencil. So again, the whole idea of a square that it has 4 equal sides. So the thing with 2D shapes is it gives you very limited information. So just working, and this is the challenge of our 2D illustration, is can you get information across of putting those 2D shapes together and making more complex objects and creating an illustration that actually reads as something. Now, what makes life much easier is having depth and dimension in our drawing. So what I'm going to do down here is I'm going to do another square, but this time I'm going to make it dimensional. So again, trying to get equal sides, but this time we're going to put lines out at an angle here. And in doing so, we're going to create a new object. And this is a cube. So when we make it dimensional, it gives it far more information. But now I've just done the outsides, but in reality, when we're drawing in 3 dimensions, and a habit and a process I want us to get into is to complete as if it's transparent. So I did these lines coming out. I also want to do a line here, and I want it to end where it lines up with a vertical line, and then connecting this line over here. So we have a transparent cube. Now, finishing this off, I'm going to do a straight line, a straight line. I'm only going to use a lead pencil on what we would see in this dimension. So why I did this is that here is a two-dimensional, started with a two-dimensional cube, and then extend it, or a good term is extrude lines to give it depth, to make it a cube. So if we think of perspective terms, if we start with a one-dimensional shape, what this means is our perspective coming out is a one-point perspective. Now I'm going to complete this and just doing the lines that I would see if this were an open box and not transparent. But the importance of drawing through as if it's transparent is we can see where lines line up. For example, drawing through shows where the back of the box goes. So we know that these lines are where they're supposed to be, and we're not going to guess on them. So here we can look into this and see into the back of the box. So it's dimensional. And we can give a little bit of shading here on the sides. Just on the sides, not at the bottom. Just to help give it some depth and perspective. Okay, so that's for this demonstration. I'm going to put some shading and such just to reinforce the 3D form. But still, when we go to our drawings and such, I'm looking at line work. Still want to be very careful and doing cleanup line and not depending on shading and tones to give us that depth. So I'm going to do this box again, but instead of a one-point perspective, or starting with that 2D shape, is I'm going to start, well, you know, a way that I like to do this is I look at the footprint of a 3D object. So in this case, I'm going to draw a line this way and then a line out this way. So what's going to happen, I'm going to make this a bit smaller of a box, is all the lines are on an angle. There is no horizontal or vertical like in the opening of the box here. So if I do this and extrude these lines up, now if I take this line across here and bring it across, take this line, bring it across, and then connect them this way, we have a cube again, but it has the perspective of 2 points. And we're going to really explore that later on, but I just want to show the difference when we're working on a 3D form if we're using 1 point or 2 point perspective. So this is 2 point perspective, or we can refer this to a 3/4 view because the object is turned in 3/4. So this one is too, actually. It's 3/4, but a different perspective. So again, what I'm going to do on this one, I'm just going to draw the lines to what the viewer would see if it were a solid box and not transparent. This time I'm going to have the top of the box open. So I'm just going to be drawing the lines that you would see. Not following that line very well, but here we go. So all these lines, I'm not going to be able to see them. So if the box is open at the top, and here I'm going to change where I put that line and make this side dark and this one lighter. So now we have a sense of depth and an open box on the ground. Okay, so there we go. So the cube in a 3D form. Now, just to go back, that the idea of 2D shapes is how do you communicate exactly what that square is representing? So until we give it some dimension, we really don't have the information on that square as to its composition, or what is the 3D form that's representing. So the obvious would be it's a cube, that it's dimensional, and in this case, those 4 equal sides are multiplied to all the other depth and dimension in the sides. But if we look straight on at an object and then look in perspective, it can be quite different. So what I'm going to demonstrate and show how that works is that if we take a look at that, and if we look at it in dimension, here I'm going to try and do a decent ellipse, meaning that if I look straight down, it would be a circle. But in a 3/4 view, we can see that that square is actually a cylinder. So I'm going to try and replicate that ellipse down here, and maybe even try and replicate that in the middle, and then connecting them. So again, this is transparent. I'm drawing through to understand the object as best I can. I just want to complete that, and then go over with the lead pencil to see the view that we had actually, or the viewer look at if it were a solid object. Oh, see, look at that. I have a hard time drawing these lines when I try and do it or draw with my paper straight. So what I like to do is rotate it. And I don't know if you've been trying this, but I find it so much easier to draw a nice curved line when drawing with the arc of my hand. Keep stressing that because I run into it all the time, and any time that I don't rotate my paper and try and draw curves, I end up making a mess of them because I'm fighting my wrist. Okay, so here we go. It's going to complete that. So there we go. We have a cylinder shape. Okay. So we can embellish that, and again, what I'm looking for is that we work on our line work and that we can get a 3-dimensional shape without shading. So, definitely do the line work first, make sure it's working, and then we can maybe add a little bit of texture or lines to reinforce that. So if you're going to do any line work to show some shading or depth in a dimension, is you have to use the same arc or direction that the surface is. So this being a cylinder, I'm going to use that same partial arc in my shading lines as I have in my line work, and that's to reinforce and make sure that we know it is a cylindrical shape. So again, that's a cylinder. We picked up the square, and if we tilt it, in this case, it's not square all around, it's actually a cylinder. But looking at a cylinder straight on, makes it hard to tell what the depth of that object is. So in this one, it is actually a circle. Tried to draw a circle. A little off. If we look straight down at that, it looks like this. If we look straight on the side, it looks like that. So the great thing is about forms and 3D forms is that we can get a lot more information out of it. So the same thing with the cylinder. And well, let's take a look. Now I'm going to try something else at this point. So we did a square. Down here I'm going to do, similar to the square, I'm going to do, let me get up here so you can see. And we might remember this one as a rectangle. Meaning that it has equal vertical lines, and two longer vertical lines, but equal in length, to give us a rectangle. So what we do with this one to create a dimensional object, and I'm going to do a 2-point perspective one on an angle like this. So I'm going to create, make it smaller here. Oh, not sure if that's going to fit. This is why we do it in blue. I've got 2 more drawings I want to do on this page. I haven't planned it out too well. It's going to be all crammed in the bottom. You know what? I'm going to do it over here. And then save one for the bottom. So I'm going to go this way. And then this way. Okay. So again, if I fill this in, well, I'm going to have it open on the front. Again, I've drawn through, so I know where lines supposed to line up. And I'm going to have an open box at the front. So we can see where this comes down, and this comes across, and then this one comes across. And now on this one, back of the box, and this side, and we have the bottom. So when we have a 3-dimensional view of a rectangle, we had a cube when it was perfectly square, and a rectangle, it is 2 names, 2 options here. A cuboid, nice and simple, or more descriptive is, for a full name on this one, is a rectangular based, I'm going to put it down here, prism. So the prism part is that extension from that rectangle shape. And actually it's extended this way. Here's the rectangle, and it's extruded into a prism shape out this way, which is the cuboid. Okay, so kind of get some different ideas of how 3D forms are extended outside or extruded from a 2D shape. So the same with this triangle here, and if we can see this all right, is on that square, hard to say what the depth is. So again, if we move this 3/4 view, we could end up that it is a cylinder as well. And again, I'm going to try and replicate that. These should be as similar as you can, and then bridging this across. So again, I'll try and fix this up with my lead pencil. So, and drawing this, again, I'm drawing through so I can see the construction, but I'm going to draw with the lead pencil only what the viewer would see if it was a solid object. So again, what we're working on are working drawings. And for a working drawing to really work, you need to draw the structure of it. And that's extremely important. Look at that, I messed that up. Real important with 3D forms because it does have structure. 2D shapes, not so much. But in 3 dimensions, it's very important to think of the structure of the object. So I flattened that circle out too much, which wouldn't happen. So let me see if I can make it rounder. There we go, that much better. Should have fixed it in the blue, but with experience I can do it with the pencil. But these are things I need you to experiment with. So anyway, so again, this is a flat 2D shape from the side, but from the top, it again is a circle like our cylinder. And this one's a cylinder too. It doesn't have a different name. It's just a difference in length. So it's not like the cube when it's an equal dimension and then a cuboid rectangular base prism when it's a different variation of length. The cylinder is regardless. It is the same name regardless. So here I'm going to add a little bit of shading here just to reinforce it. And again, the surface. I turn it upside down for that curvature again. So if you're going to put anything, it's not shading as such, it's still line work that I'm doing. And any line work on that surface has to reinforce the shape of the object. So even though these are lines to indicate some shadow on this cylinder, I am doing them in a curved fashion to reinforce the shape and structure of this 3D form. Okay, so there we go, if you've got that the right way up. All right, so yeah, a little flat on this side. Anyways, it's giving you a good idea. So for you, it's to work on this and really start to figure out and understand 3D form in its simplest building blocks. From here, we're going to be building up into a full 3D illustration in both character and prop and environment. So I have another column here that I want to do. One more shape on this page, and then I have a second tutorial with some more shapes. So this one, again, 2D form, and let me get that up here. And it is supposed to be a little narrow here, but this is a triangle. And we should know that from our elements of design, where we looked at shapes, and our 2D tutorial on these. So again, the flat triangle should be 3 equal sides. But again, what happens when we look at it in 3 dimension? So again, I'm going to work on footprint in this case. So if I take this triangle and create a 3 equal side footprint and then extrude up to a point, is that we have a dimensional triangle, or what we know as a pyramid. But again, I'm just going to draw this from what the viewer would see if this was a solid object and not a transparent. And again, we're drawing transparent for structure. But you can see the footprint of this is 3 sides. So the name of this one is a triangular based pyramid. Now, we know pyramids, if we think of Egypt, that the footprint isn't triangular, the footprint is square. So we're going to do one that way. So here I'm going to do a square footprint. And the same idea, we're going to do a point above and bring the line down. So, not quite accurate, but we can see there's 4 sides as opposed to 3. And now if I just draw the lines that the viewer would see, the end result isn't a whole lot different from what the viewer would see, but drawing through gives us more information and helps us if we had to, particularly if you had to build this in 3D in construction. It's really important to know what type of pyramid you're building. Not so much even in a 3D drawing, but really important to know its structure and how it's built. So this one is a square based pyramid. I have one more for this tutorial, and yeah, I'm going to do this one a little different. I'm going to stand it on its end because I've run out of room on this side. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do a triangle. Kind of the footprint or at the top, and then I am going to extrude that shape. Here, go in there. So again, I'm just going to show what we would see here. So the only indication, once I draw the lines that the viewer would see that this is a triangle in any form, is this top surface. Now, actually, if I had that an open top and I had this line come down, that if this was an open triangle, that now we'd have some depth of what's inside of that. But again, here we don't see any of this, but we draw through to make sure we understand the structure. So the name of this one, it is a triangular prism. So very much like our rectangular prism is we start with a footprint of the shape, kind of in perspective, and then we extrude the lines down. And that gives us a triangular prism. So that extension of lines gives us the prism. The same as when we started with a rectangular box and we extrude it out this way, it now becomes a cuboid, or in this case, a rectangular based prism. So we start to learn the terminology, but what's really important is we know the shapes. So I'll wrap up this tutorial And this is the page you should end up with, and submit for part 1 of the 2-part of 3D Forms.